So welcome again. So this is first week of our class, and we'll be focusing on the chapter one, and we'll cover part of the chapter today, and we'll cover the rest of the chapter in the next week. So as we begin, so you may come across this question: Why am I here in this course? Why am learning statistics? And especially for social behavioral sciences, we always think it is uh, sometimes challenging, not most of the time, sometimes challenging, and why we should be doing all this statistical work. So when we think about statistics and its importance, uh, it will help you in different ways if you're uh, well versed in statistical knowledge. Not necessarily doing statistics, you may be able to understand the statistics. So it will help in multiple ways. So it will better prepare you for advanced courses, both in undergraduate or graduate courses. It will set you apart from those who do not take courses in statistics. It will challenge you intellectually and make you a better student in behavioral or social sciences. So top 10 uses, this is from stataanalytica.com. So what are the day-to-day uses of statistics? So it may help in prediction what may occur in the future. You might have come across a lot of testing, be it psychological or other testing, sociological, other testing. And then people also do forecasting about how the weather will look like tomorrow, or do you know how the government will function. And then preparedness, statistics is also helpful in emergency preparedness. It helps in predicting in different field. It will help in like political field, like statistics crucial for political campaigns. It also is very much important in insurance field, especially actuary or other life insurance. And then also in consumer behavioral surveys, we get to know how those products are doing, and accordingly you can modify the product. So and it has importance in social behavioral research. If you are engaged with your clients, we need to have clients feedback. In financial setting, be it in sports also, uh, the statistics is extremely important. This is a graph or figure from a recent article from Nature. Nature is, you can say, one of the top most journal. And this infographic shows during the time of COVID how social and behavioral science were extremely relevant. The topics covered here include threat perception, the leadership, how the leadership take charge, how individual and collective interest plays role, how science of communications are important, what are the social contexts, how to manage stress and coping behavioral. In all these different fields, this statistics is extremely important, be it threat perception or leadership. So that there can be social scientific research where we need to understand all these areas, and the statistics is one of the core aspect in doing any research in any of this area. This is one of the example. This is another example where you can see, this is from Prison Policy Institute, and this particular graph shows black people are disproportionately stopped on the street by police, while white people are much more likely to call police for help. So this word disproportionate will be quite common in a lot of interpretation when you read articles online, or if you read some journal article. Disproportionate is meaning being out of proportion. So here example, people in the last three these bars, you can see people who sought help from police. So 77% of white responded they sought help from the police, as compared to the black, who are only 9%, and Hispanic 8%. So these kind of bars or different ways of interpreting data is extremely important. And then this another graph, you can see here the incarceration rate by race and ethnicity for every 1 lakh people or 100,000 people. And you can see black represent really higher side, 2,306 for each for per 100,000 people. They are incarcerated, and then American Indians are second, and then Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islanders, then Latinx and white who are not Latinx, and the Asians are lowest represented. So this is another way of interpreting or projecting data, where you can see the less than 1/3 of all states require incarcerated people to wear face masks during this COVID situations. So these are just kind of sample projection of data which are important to understand what is happening around us in social and behavioral world. So it is extremely important to know and read how to read the articles, be it on social or cultural or political issues. It is extremely important to know these basic minimum skills. The word statistics, you can see it came from the early application of statistical thinking revolved around the needs of state to base policy on demographic and economic data. The word state etymologically come from New Latin statisticum collegium, that is Council of State, and German statistic, political arithmetic. So in other words, statistics describes a set of tools and techniques that is used for describing, organizing, and interpreting data. Before we venture into statistics, that is quantitative method, we will see there are three kinds of research methods, but largely two kinds. One is quantitative methods, where the base is statistics. We'll be focusing on statistics, or you can say quantitative methods in this statistics course. But there is also another way of doing research, that is qualitative research. The quantitative research, the statistical, you might have come across a lot of surveys by you visit some malls or some example Macy or other stores, and you get some survey and you fill it up. Most of the questions are like close-ended questions, and then there may be rarely there will be like descriptive questions in those surveys. So that kind of survey is grounded into quantitative methods, and then you use statistical tool to analyze those data. On the other hand, if the same company or any agency does a qualitative research, example, you want to do interviews of the victims of interpersonal violence, and then you have 5 questions about their background, their experience of interpersonal violence, what does it mean? So a lot of exploratory questions, and then as you interact as a researcher with them, you will get more detailed answers on those qualitative questions. So there are and then you analyze them based on themes and patterns, and so these are 2 broad categories. And as you can see here, there are 2 ways of knowing this quantitative and qualitative. One is deductive approach, that is quantitative. So a researcher, and this is for our statistics course, what happens in deductive reasoning? Researcher test or verify a theory. Researcher test hypothesis, that is research questions from the theory. Researchers define and operationalize the variables derived from theory, and so it looks like top-down approach. So you have some logical question in your mind. Example, poverty maybe cause of poverty is cause of homelessness. So this is the kind of hypothesis you want to test, and you create a survey and run it and collect data and interpret it. On the other hand, the qualitative questions, it comes from bottom up. So researchers gather information, the researcher asks open-ended questions, researcher analyze data, and then researchers look for broader pattern and poses generalization or theories. In our chapter, it talks about specifically quantitative research methods, talks about 5 steps: asking research questions, formulating research hypothesis, that is research statement, and then collecting data, analyzing data, and evaluating data. And in the center of it, it is theory, which guides us to move forward. So asking research, what is empirical research? So empirical research is all about getting first-hand data. Like you have your survey, and you go and collect data in person or online. So there is primary data, and based on this data, you analyze and you say something. It is then it is considered as empirical evidence or evidence-based practice. Role of theory is extremely important as we do any statistical research, and those are assumptions and propositions that explains or predict or understand phenomena. They are also used to attempt to establish a link between the observed, the data, and our understanding of why this particular phenomena occurs or relate to each other. So we will go in details of variables and hypothesis in next week, but we'll go through this quickly here. These terms are extremely important. Hypothesis is a tentative statement about empirical reality involving relationship between the two or more variables. Example of hypothesis: higher the poverty rate in the community, the higher percent of community residents who are homeless. So there is homelessness as a outcome because of poverty. Here the variables may be characteristics or properties that can take different values or attribute. Example variable here may be poverty rate, percent of homeless community resident. And then there are independent variables and dependent variables. Independent variable here is the hypothesized that is hypothesized to cause or lead to variation in another variable. Here the example is poverty rate, and the dependent variable is hypothesized to vary depending on or under the influence of another variable. So here the dependent variable is percent of community residents who are homeless. To keep remember difference between independent and dependent, I always suggest to think about independent variable comes first, and then the dependent variable. So the poverty here, according to our hypothesis statement, comes first, and then it causes homelessness. So independent variable is poverty rate and dependent variable is homelessness. So thank you so much, and we'll go into next week more into chapter 1 again, and then complete pre-class forum, review quiz 1, and we'll cover different remaining topics in the next week. Thank you.